going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome back to another watch list video. Hope you all had yourself a great weekend. Most of us trade the markets to have free time and do what we really love, like spend time with friends, family, golfing, whatever you personally enjoy. And I just think this is the type of market where I try my hardest to stay away from the screens after the open. Um, Obviously, I'm focused more maybe on my nightly routine, even though from my scans right now, I'm not seeing really anything to do. But for the market to continue rolling over, corrections bring just unreal amounts of opportunity. So I'm going to continue to scan for relative strength every single night, locating the stocks, building the biggest bases, and holding up the best, but also making sure that I am not FOMOing into poor setups. Um, and there's no need to rush gap ups, gap downs, anything like that. So I just want to start this off saying, like I said, I do not see really anything at all to do tomorrow in any way. During my scan, there was absolutely nothing that excites me. You had lots of inside weeks on names that have been super volatile, stuff breaking down, maybe some names going sideways after breaking down. Makes me think that maybe some stuff wants continuation to the downside. Like, for example, if a name hasn't already broken down yet, maybe it looks like it's possibly gearing up to, right? If you're looking to buy a high quality stock in a good group, there is not much. In markets like this, like we've seen, relative strength becomes relative weakness very, very quick. So in this upcoming week, we have tons, and I mean tons of earnings this week. Wednesday especially, right? And I think Thursday as well. Like we have four of the seven of the Magnificent Seven reporting this week, guys. Starting off with the earnings: CLS, SK Hynix, STX, right, which is your DRAM, which not does not look good to me, right? You're below the 50 and you're just in a downtrend, right? But you got SK Hynix and STX, KLAC, BE, Microsoft, Meta, right? You can look at your mags. Looks horrible, so we'll see if those can maybe wake them up a little bit. You have LRCX, ARM, Hood, Qualcomm, FTNT, Apple, Amazon, right? There's so many earnings next week, and there's even more on top of that. So it really makes me realize how important earnings gap ups are to my system. Those are one of my favorite setups to trade. So being patient right now and waiting, I've seen the biggest winners come off of an earnings gap up. So right before that, I don't want to do absolutely nothing. Preserve my mental capital, my physical capital, and things like that, right? It's best for me to just sit on my hands this week and not do much, right? Watch and wait how these earnings play out. Keep building my lists, tracking relative strength. The month ends in 4 days, so there'll be tons of monthly charts, maybe some new monthly moves. Looking at last week, right? Google reported a good quarter and it got destroyed. MXL had a good quarter and it got destroyed. Tesla had a bad quarter and it got destroyed. And then Intel had a nice earnings and sales quarter, but it's in that weak semis group, and that gave them a reason to continue lower, losing support again, breaking down. Does not look very good. So, right, Friday was a shit show for anybody not willing to listen to what the market has been saying, right? It's getting to a point where even any stock that like hasn't reported yet, or it will get to a point, I guess, where any stock that hasn't reported yet, that's on my radar, or it will be off my radar until its earnings report is done, right? If you've been just buying or adding to losing longs, you've probably run into a lot of headache and a lot of frustration, right? For those of you that watch my Thursday nightly watch this video, I talked about how there was so many good looking short setups, whether that was into pivots, off sideways, or just into declining moving averages. Those worked out extremely well. Obviously, the market finally gave way on Friday and broke down. So from what I see, I just hope we continue this move lower, especially like the faster that we move down, the better. Um, It'll just be super interesting. So we'll see what happens from there. I personally locked down a cipher short through the pivot, like I talked about, right? You go to a weekly chart, prior pivot, came into that 60%, I think almost 60% move off the lows. And in the first 5 minutes of the day, you're failing that level. So I got short and it was pretty easy from there, right? Didn't quite come back anywhere towards the high day and it closed right at the lows. It was pretty impressive short there. For me, got about a 10% position there because I was pretty confident in the short side. So that was interesting. That's pretty much the only name I own now. I'm out of GH. I'm out of any other names I had before. But yeah, I want to keep this video super fast. So I'm going to go through it quick. QQQ, right? You're losing support. You're gapping up in your after-hour session. We'll see what comes of that. But I think a gap up was the worst possible scenario. I wanted to see a gap down. I want to see this thing go down in a super sharp way. But looks like we're not getting that. We're getting a gap up. People you definitely don't want to chase a gap up, but some people might chase that. And definitely not the best. I look at an XLK, and this looks like it's ready to break down. I also did something. Okay, hold on. May have just messed up my charts here. Let's pull that back onto there. There we go. Okay, so PayPal I have on here for some reason. XLK, there we go. So I go to my inverted charts here, which I inverted the volume and the price action. Look at the XLK, right? Building a super nice bottoming base. Nice day on Friday. You go to a weekly chart here, nice inside week, right? So just give an example of like the short side has been working and it's looking way, way better. So that's definitely the more interesting. Sorry, I'm a little unorganized here. RSP had a super nice day on that Friday. So that was interesting to see this continue to hold up. SMH, right, breaking down, looks absolutely disgusting, whichever way you want to look at this. Inside day on Friday or on Thursday, and then you get the beautiful follow through to the downside, right? The charts on the short side are absolutely beautiful, and that's where we're seeing the best fall through, the best price action, and the most volume. So XLF is another one I will say has been holding up really, really well and had a super nice day on Friday. So a lot of names in this group are super slow. I'm not really interested to trade them, but it's nice to keep an eye on the strength there. Bug, right? Your cybersecurity stuff, not a bad. It hasn't gotten hit too hard, but like last week was really disgusting, right? Maybe into the 50 would be interesting. I don't have really any of those names on the list. Palo Alto doesn't look horrible. Maybe just it's trying to build out a range. It's not my favorite, but we'll see what happens when it gets down to the bottom of the range and how it acts. XLV was nice last week, super nice bounce. You look at a weekly chart. You had a nice inside week. Definitely interesting, but there's just nothing in this group that interested. Eli Lilly, if you bought this big day and you sat through this, like this is just disgusting. This action is so volatile, so choppy. I want it to be a little bit better, but we'll see what another week's worth of action will look like, but not anything for me to do there. XLRE was another one that had a super nice breakout out of its pivot, so that was pretty interesting. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for looking at the markets. ANET, going over my watch list now. ANET, you've been building a nice base. It shows up on the relative strength scanner. They just don't see a spot to buy it. I just don't see a spot to buy this one at all. But continue to build sideways and build this big base that it's building. While the market breaks down would be super interesting. And Dell, the same thing, right? Like I don't want to be buying this thing towards the top of the range. You definitely have 2 days tight. Maybe like falling into the support gap is an area I would watch to buy it, but besides there, I don't see too much. Definitely a name that's been holding up. Inside week looks interesting. If there's any name out of any of these lists that I would buy, it's either Dell or like HPE, right? HPE, another one that looks not too bad. Pretty much double inside day, getting pretty tight. Weekly chart looks awesome. NTAP, same exact looking weekly chart, looks pretty good. But, remember the market's environment. Always keep that in the back of your mind. It's been horrible. So market breaks down. These things continue sideways. It would be super interesting. NTNX, another one. This one's in your software, right, alongside your Snow. Snow had a super nice inside day on Friday, trying to build a higher low, right? It's been building sideways finally after kind of wedging up, doing exactly what I wanted to do. Maybe it needs to just continue that, but it's right under a big pivot. So we'll see if it can get going, if the market has some sort of washout in the next day or two and then gets some sort of bounce. That'd be super interesting, and these are definitely the names I'd focus on. NTNX, another one, nice bounce on Friday, showing nice relative strength, nice looking weekly chart, double inside day, but shitload of overhead supply here, whether you go to a weekly or a monthly chart. So definitely not my favorite. But NTAP is another one, right? Just continue building sideways if the market breaks down, and these things are going to continue to stay on my radar. TGTX in that biotech group, not bad. I like the weekly chart. Nice wick. And just continue building out sideways would be super interesting. VSXY, right? I threw this name on the list, which sucks that this is on the list, but there is just nothing that looks good enough to really make my list. But not a bad candle off the 20-day. It's right at highs. So just going to continue to watch it, but it's, moves 4% per day, just barely 5. A little over 4.5. So just something I'm going to keep an eye on. Probably none of these I'll trade. Like I said, I don't see anything to do tomorrow. There's nothing that makes me want to do anything tomorrow. MRX, not a bad chart in your technology group, but if technology is breaking down, internet software, whether it's Reddit, whatever it may be, does not look good. FSLY, nice inside week. But just another one where it's like, I just don't know how to feel about these stocks, and I don't want to be about ANET. I already talked about CrowdStrike is a part of that bug group, right? Your software, cybersecurity. Coming into the 50-day will be interesting. It's had a nice pullback. Will it build a higher low? I don't know. But like I said, just continue basing on stocks like this that are not breaking down the worst way. I mean, this is super ugly, but overall on the chart, right, you're kind of still sideways in here. So continue holding up will be super interesting. ASML is another one to keep an eye on, right? It's been sideways. To me, it looks like it's very possible this one just is ready to break down. It's in the semiconductor group. You had an inside week. Earnings is out of the way. The semis either need a savior or they are going to break down. AMD is another one where I didn't throw it on the list because I just don't see anything to do with it. We'll see if it wants to build a higher low or if it's in a horrible, super poor recent group. You get an inside week and it wants to break down, right? It's building lower highs. It broke down on, Friday, markets week. This thing's breaking down, maybe slowly starting to lose some of that relative strength, or, relative strength is turning into relative weakness. We'll have to see, but not my favorite. Look there, ADPT, biotech name, not a bad sideways little base you're building. Not my favorite. All right, I won't be trading any of these, but definitely want to keep an eye on some of these setups. TVTX is another one. SYRE, another one that's just been building sideways in a nice way. And BBIO is another one where you got a big gap up, kind of a V recovery, maybe a few days of sideways. Interesting weekly chart, but that is pretty much going to be it for me. Your NQ did have a gap up, which, like I said, worst case, and it's getting sold off already. Your Kospi, kind of same thing. I think this one gapped up and it's already flipping red. So not the best market to really want to do anything in. I don't see absolutely anything to do. I'm going to say that over and over again just to remind myself and hopefully remind others. Sit on your hands as best you can this week. Wait for the earnings. There's a shitload of earnings, so it's best to just sit out, see what happens, and we'll reassess from there. But I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.